All right, folks, you're either watching or listening to the Side Hustle Army podcast. I guess if you're watching it, it's not technically a podcast, but it is what it is. And today I'm here with Jennifer Pereira. Jennifer Pereira is an intuitive life and business coach. And she is, what else can I say about Jennifer? Jennifer and I go way, 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 way back, in the sense that we met during personal development, which is like you live 10 years in a month of that sort of work and get to know people in a way that you would not normally get to know people. And what else can I say? And so Jennifer is joining. I like to let people know where we all are when we're doing these things. I'm in my basement wearing a hoodie because I'm cold, and I'm in Eastern Ontario, and Jennifer is in like this much brighter area of Vancouver. So welcome, Jennifer.
Yeah. Hello, hi. No hood here. It's a balmy Palm Springs.
Yeah. Not like here.
No, it's quite nice in Vancouver right now. Nice to see you.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm in my basement. I'm looking out the window and I can see about 2 feet of snow outside. And my backyard is actually so frozen over that I ice skated on it the other day.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm learning how to ice skate. So actually, it's all about perspective. Last year I was really mad that my backyard flooded and froze over. But now that I know how to ice skate, I'm excited that it flooded and froze over. So
there you go.
All about perspective.
There you go.
Awesome. So Jennifer, cool. So you're like the perfect person to have this conversation with, because we're going to have like a totally awesome conversation about superpowers.
Great.
As I mentioned, my podcast is split up into seasons, and my first season is about superpowers, because I was actually in the personal development that you and I did together. It was the first time anyone ever was like, figure out what your superpower is. And I was like, oh, I don't think I have one. And since then I've explored it a little bit more in different contexts. That's been really awesome. So let's talk about you. So what is your superpower?
Yeah, great question. As you were speaking and explaining that about superpowers and going through personal development and really hearing that for the first time, I think that even just for the audience and for ourselves, like that's very daunting to face what is your superpower, because we are just people and you're going through your normal average existence. And it's like, well, that implies some type of superhuman quality. And probably at the beginning of a journey or working through something or starting a business, if you're here and learning a whole bunch of things, and it's like, well, what do you mean now I have to feel special or realize that I'm special to make this happen? So my superpower is presence. So the ability to be very, very present with someone in the moment and dial into a truth that they probably can't see, whether it's a personal block or something that's stopping them from moving forward in their business. That's kind of the mainstream way that I code or hide the word intuition, because that can be a bit discombobulating for some people if you don't work in the spiritual realm that I work in. But yeah, presence. So the ability to be very present to what is in the moment.
Very cool. And it helps other people who, from a coaching angle, or not shouldn't say angle, but like coaching inner relationship, like that is super powerful, to be able to see what is going on with someone else in the moment when they can't see it. Right.
Exactly.
Which is a lot of what coaching is. That's very cool. And I mean, you said something else that I really liked, which was to realize that I have a superpower, because I have a theory, at least this is certainly the evolution I went through, which was like, first I had to like give myself permission to have a superpower. Like I almost had to be like, it's okay for me to say that I have a superpower and not sound like a douchebag. And then it's like, admit it, or like give myself permission, admit it, embrace it, and then like share it. Like I feel like those are kind of like the steps that I've gone through to be able to just say it. And like, it's kind of funny. I'll just really quickly, like I thought, so when I first did the superpower exercise, someone was like, what would you not trade for anything in the world? What quality or skill set do you have? And I remember thinking, I'm fluent in Spanish, and it was really hard to get fluent in Spanish. That's my superpower, because I don't want to, I wouldn't trade that for anything because it's so hard to get. But then I was like, you know what? Actually, I would like trade it if I had to. And so then I delved deeper and figured out what my superpower actually was. But it's kind of funny. Like, I just feel like, anyways, you kind of nodded at that. Like, what do you feel about that? Like the steps of going through the process of figuring out a superpower, like embracing it. Like, well, how do you find that journey for people?
Well, I heard you say the key word, which is permission. And that's so much of my work, especially, with women. My clientele is primarily women, is giving themselves permission to show up for themselves, first and foremost, so that they can show up for others, and allowing that to happen. That's so much of that, the feminine hardwiring and the biology, is that we are receivers by nature. And a lot of women just we're programmed not to receive. We need to push, we need to drive at results, we need goals, we're so results oriented, and you forget, it's like we're continually remembering. So your word permission was really powerful. And a lot of times it takes a catalyst in your life, whether that's a program or a crisis of some kind or a health scare, to really reevaluate what's going on. And I just keeping it real and saying, that's usually what is a trigger for people, is a health catalyst, a financial crisis, something, a wake up call. And then you look and be like, okay, I need to do something about this.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. Because it's not necessarily something that, I was wandering around my life even thinking about, like just kind of doing the day to day and just being like, this is what life is. And I don't really, don't want to spend too much time introspectively wondering about these things. And nothing was really spurring me on to do any of that until friends introduced me to, different, Landmark and different other personal development arenas. So one thing I was going to say, it was really funny as we were setting up this interview. You wrote, I can't remember exactly what you wrote to me. You wrote something like, you're kind of hinting that your approach or your take on things might be a little too woo for my crowd. And I was like, if you can't take the woo, get out the kitchen, because that's what this episode's about. It's about the woo. So why don't you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what is the woo? Like, what is all this? And like, how do you embrace it? Because that's kind of the second question, is like, how have you, taken that superpower and turned it into your business? But also, like, if you want to just kind of focus on the woo side of things, like, what is that?
Sure.
How does that happen? I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I appreciate this curveball that you're throwing. It's awesome. And I'll gladly catch it. In terms of the woo piece, so I feel that there's a lot of very powerful leaders in our world today that have a strong spiritual foundation, and we just don't see that in the limelight. Whether that's mantras or rituals or affirmations that they use, or mindset tools or tricks or hacks, there's a spiritual foundation that most successful people are working with, and the average person just doesn't have access to or doesn't know what's going on in the background. When you think spiritual or spirituality or woo-woo, we picture people doing this on the beach all day in Bali or someplace fantastic, and the sense or feeling of ungroundedness immediately comes up, and then we don't want to be associated with those people or with that archetype. So in getting very present to my superpower and my intuition and going through my personal development journey, I recognized that I'd always been very, very intuitive. And when I had a big health crash and went into personal development, that's when I really started to look at my wiring and what intuition is and was. And that connection, that I call it source connection, so the universe around us, which we're part of, started to, it's not that it came back, because it always been there and was just dormant, but it really started to ignite, and I started to be much more open. And it's not that phenomena started occurring, because they didn't. It's like my hypersensitivity to the environment around me skyrocketed. So my brand, the Modern Woo, my brand is called the Modern Woo. What I seek to do with that is to bring comfort, relief, and science to the modern person, especially business people that are corporate and conscious, and bring the woo into their life in a way that is practical, is real, is science-based. Where science lacks the evidence, let's work together to create that new paradigm and create that vocabulary, because that's why we're here, right? Our awareness can only expand as fast as we do, and that's the universe in motion through us, right? So I feel that it's our work to create the next wave of spirituality, and that a lot of people can benefit from incorporating mindset hacks and tricks and like the tools that work with them and their biology into their everyday.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I think you pointed out something that I've recently been thinking about, which is like what access. So you look at CEOs or these people who are leaders of companies and things, and you said that many of them, or potentially all of them, have access to something that a lot of people are either don't have access. I mean, they're not taking the time to create the access to. They're not going after it. And like, just as an example, like I'll use Tony Robbins as an example because I'll pick on him because he's a big guy. He can take it, and he'll never hear this. So, like,
are you sure?
I
think he's in.
So he's a big dude. He's like big hands, just crush my head. Blah. Anyways, he's the kind of like archetype of the like personal development sphere that I think I certainly saw before I got into it as like, oh, that's what that is, and that looks goofy to me.
Sure.
But then then I got into personal development. I started to like watch his stuff, and I was like, oh, like this guy's kind of saying some really cool stuff. And then I saw an interview with Hugh Jackman one day. Hugh Jackman, who's like the most awesome guy on earth. And he's like, oh yeah, like I work with Tony Robbins. And I'm like, what? Like you're Hugh Jackman. You don't have to work with anyone on anything. And even some people in my sphere of like online marketing, like one guy, I got an email like yesterday, and the guy's like, and like, I feel like I'm starting to detect it as an undercurrent in the sense that I'll be working with someone who is maybe 3 or 4 degrees removed from Tony Robbins, but Tony Robbins taught someone something, and they taught someone something, and they taught someone something, and now this person is implementing it. And the deeper I look at what people are saying, I'm like, wait, where did this coach? And it's usually coaching. Like that's where I'm usually stumbling upon this, but it's also coaching in the sense of marketing coaching, brand coaching, like all these different people who are kind of taking it from the very superficial, taking it to like the next level. So this guy like who does marketing, I got an email like yesterday, and it was like, oh yeah, a couple years ago I was in the second row of a Tony Robbins thing, and I'm like, what? Like you're doing it too. And so and I like what you said about practical, and like where science doesn't kind of answer everything, we've got sort of like another branch of our spirituality to lean on to answer some of those questions. So that's pretty cool.
It would be a sad state of affairs to think that we discovered everything that there was to discover.
Yeah.
As humans, we're exploring.
Yeah.
Exploring. So I'm excited to be on the forefront out there and putting myself, making myself vulnerable. But I've discovered that it's no longer a vulnerability. That's the strength. Is like, maybe people think I'm weird, or maybe they think I'm strange, but someone has to go first. Well, the rest of us catch up. Like someone has to go first.
Well, when we first met, I definitely remember moments where you would say something and I'd be like, what? Like, for example, money, like I'm in finance, and you're like, I remember talking about money, and one day you're like, well, money is energy. And you just kind of like threw it out there. And I was like, what? I was like, what? What are you talking about? It's like, money's not energy. What are you talking about? And then, I was like, all right, well, let me, consider that or think about that or accept that as a possibility. And then I read a few books like You Are a Badass at Making Money and things like that. And I was like, it really does change my sense of things if I do think of it as energy and like start really reconsidering what I think of. So it's been interesting. And then another thing that you've said that also has thrown me for a loop in general is around time. Where I'll be like, oh, I don't have time or something around time. And you're like, oh, well, time is limitless or something like that. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Who is this woman?
But it's cool how you just throw it out there. You're just like, boom, like money is energy, time is limitless. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. I can start again tomorrow. Because tomorrow isn't real. It's a construct in your head.
Oh, man,
I actually didn't know that. So thanks for dropping those bombs. I didn't realize that had the effect. And I'm saying things a bit too casually, but if it's triggering,
no, it's the perfect way to say it, because the way that you said it was very it was just like, this is what it is. Like, it wasn't like an apologetic thing. Like, oh, this might sound weird, but money is energy. Like, you just kind of said it. Like, oh, well, money is energy. Yeah. And I was like,
literally one sentence. Money is energy.
I was like, I guess I need to think about that, because she just said it. I mean, like, you seem like yeah. Very matter of fact. Like, this is it. Jennifer says, and I'm like, oh, let me take a listen to that. Okay, cool. So one of the things that the goal of this podcast is to encourage people to figure out what their superpower is, and if they go through the journey that if they want to follow the journey that I went through of like exploring it, discovering it, admitting it, like you said, like giving yourself permission to have a superpower, because I think that's the first step. Like for me, it really is just like going from I don't have one to, okay, I have one, what is it? And then figuring it out. So what would you say to someone who is trying to discover their superpower and they just don't know what it is? Like, what would you say to someone to help them kind of like figure it out?
Yeah, so I would say stop looking at all the things that you do and really zone in on your favorite way that you be. And like breathe that in. Like, what does that even mean, right? So um, maybe you are excellent at Excel spreadsheets, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But is it that the Excel spreadsheets is your superpower, or is it your detail orientation?
Mm.
You
So
know, so it's like
give that. I know that
how,
people. Sorry, go ahead. I know that people could pause and rewind and all that, but I want you to say it again. Don't focus. So I'll just stop there. But don't. Yeah.
so forget about all the things that you do and focus on your favorite way that you be. So what is it? How is it that you're being when you lose time? How is it that you're being when you're totally in flow? What is it that you're just like, is it dancing? Is it singing? Is it doing calculations, as we said? Is it just when your Spanish is just flying out and you're so fluent and proud of that? And what is it where you're just your heart and your soul and like the light behind your eyes is just on? It's just so effortless. That's your thing. That's your one thing. And it's so hard because you do have to give yourself permission to go there. But it's like that freeing, expansive feeling when you're like riding a bicycle like a child. So in your adulthood, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
What is it and how you're being that it's just so in flow for you?
The flow. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's really
And
cool.
that's in you asking and using ourselves as the living examples that, you know, people can make fun of or attach to or do as they wish, is giving yourself that permission, right? Like I love having very deep conversations. I just don't enjoy small talk. I cringe at it. I run away and avoid social situations where that's present. I really like getting to the heart of the matter with people. And in going, you know, through that identification, it's like, where do I lose time? Where am I so in flow? And it's like, well, when I'm talking about things that I really care about with people that I really care about. And so presence is my superpower.
Yeah.
And so it's that whole flow state thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said about not wanting, wanting to have deep conversations, wanting to have meaningful conversations, not being satisfied with small talk. The funny thing is, I think most people are in the same boat, but the social construct is that we're supposed to hang out and have small talk. And I go to networking events, and I'll go to a networking event with like 60 people, and I'll be there for an hour and change, and I'm usually the last one to leave because I'm having a deep, meaningful conversation. So like I'm not there to talk about how busy everyone is. I'm not there to talk about the weather. Like I'm there to get to know people and figure out what's going on in their lives. And so I usually get to know 2 or 3 people really, really well in those situations. And I meet a lot of people who say, well, I don't like small talk. And I say, well, whose job is it to change that? Or like, whose role is it to change that? Like, I can't remember a time when I have taken the leap from small talk to meaningful talk and anyone said, ooh, I don't want to do that. Like, oh, you're going to ask me about my aspirations? Like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Like everyone I've ever done that, like that I've had that leap of, yeah, oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm busy too. Oh, that's good. Busy's good. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, like, what are you up to in life? Like, what's scaring you about what you're going through right now? What's exciting you? What's getting you excited? All those sorts of things. And like getting into really meaningful stuff. Everyone's always up for it. Like I find.
Yeah. So you've taken on that role of being the catalyst or being at cause for that new state of being right there inside the moment, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you've actually done that for me a couple times where you triggered me. And then we had a super meaningful conversation. And I think that's great. And it's cool too how you can start to sense. So for the intuitives in the crowd checking out the video, you can start to sense when people are swimming in the shallow end of the pool. You feel their fears and what they are. So it's really interesting. I've started to pick up on people's trauma and their story as they're speaking, and I get why they're hiding. Because some people really do want to talk about the weather and sports, and it's fine. Like that's where they're at in their life, and I get it now. And it's like, oh right, okay, I can see X, Y, Z.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's I mean, I've said busy a few times. Like busy is the new. I don't know. It's just like supposed to be a good thing. Like how are things? Busy.
It's
Busy.
ridiculous.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
is that good? Are you happy you're busy? Are you really busy, or are you just saying that because you're afraid that people will perceive you as unsuccessful if you're not busy?
Oh, no, they're busy. They're busy because they lack focus.
Mm,
Busy doing all the, I don't want to say busy doing all the wrong things, but
mm-hmm.
typically 10 out of 10, 100%.
Yeah,
Busy avoiding feelings, busy getting clear on what they should be doing,
yeah,
busy not being clear on their superpower because that sounds crazy, but it's the one thing that could transform their entire life and business. It's like
yeah.
it's very simple. Life is very simple and we make it very complicated. You
Wow.
really don't need to be so busy.
So is that, you just said something very interesting. You said spending time figuring out what their superpower is, which might be the one thing that makes a change in their business and
Yeah,
lives. You feel that?
I do feel that strongly. I do feel that strongly. When people work in their genius zone, it's a complete day to night transition in how their business operates, whether or not they're even going to start a business, whether or not that business can scale and be successful and, operate in a really steady, reliable way, which otherwise it's just an expensive hobby.
Yeah,
It's really identifying your zone of genius
yeah,
and then calling in all the other pieces, whether that's staff, whether that's systems, whether that's process. You need to be in your zone of genius. Some people are better managers, others are visionaries, some are super creative, and that's the superpower thing. It's like, how are you best utilizing your beautiful human self to create service for others, basically?
yeah, yeah. So that's awesome. Zone of genius is definitely, like, I could do probably a whole season on that, like how to achieve the zone of genius using superpower and the other elements that kind of go along with it. And even the practical ones, like you said, like offloading those things that don't fall within the zone of genius. And especially if you're
Mm-hmm.
offloading it to someone for whom that is their zone of genius. Like, it's just like
Right,
everyone wins. Everyone
right.
wins. And I don't think I've said it yet in this podcast, but the superpower I've identified for myself is teaching. I love teaching. I love
Yes.
making complex things simple for people. But I've also learned that behind that superpower, the reason why I love that superpower is because I really care. I care about people, and I want to see people succeed. I want to see people understand. Like, I want to see people like move forward. So that's part of why that's my superpower, is because it's like sort of a manifestation of that caring. Now, the thing is recently I have been, intentional with getting into my superpower more often, and it's like putting a rocket booster on my everything, like, because it's just like suddenly,
Yeah.
like, wow, like the more time I can spend in that zone of genius superpower, I'm having fun, I have high energy. I look forward to what I'm doing. And I think, we talked about it before I hit record, I think, where you said something about fun and how fun used to, like, what was it you said about, like, you said something about you're having fun, but like it used to be like you weren't supposed to have fun. Did you say that, or am I like, yeah.
I think that you are dreaming that a little bit, but we've talked about this before. We have talked about that before,
Mm-hmm.
and that fun is a huge marker because it's our life force in a forward kinetic motion,
Okay.
right? So when you're having fun, it's a biological marker for you that you are using your abilities to the best of their ability. So it's an important marker, just like anger, just like anything else. Like
Yeah.
fun is a really important way to measure. Basically, it's a
Yeah.
quantitative quality.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk about client avatar at some point, and I have something to say about fun with that. So we'll save it until that moment. But
Okay.
a
Yeah.
funny
Okay.
thing about my negative connotations of the pursuit of fun, like, it's like, oh, I have fun. Like, well, that's not important. Like, at work, let's just say, how's work going? Oh, I'm having fun. Well, who cares? Are you profitable? Are you blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, if I'm not having fun, none of that other stuff matters. But it is commonly seen as like a negative thing. Like, well, why are you chasing fun at work or wherever? Like, we're also, potential idea of like, we're supposed to be put up with whatever suffering we're supposed to put up with, and not, try for fun and all that. So
For
very
sure.
awesome.
That's
Well, yep.
that's a huge thing, in the coaching world as well. And Tony Robbins is a great example that you brought up, and we could bring up others. But it's like the whole fun thing. If it's not fun, are you really going to be motivated to get out of bed every day and do it? Are you really feeling inspired? Inspired. So in spirit, if we break down the etymology of that word, right? So are you moving
Ooh,
your life force?
I love entomology breakdown. So hold on.
Yeah.
Inspired is from in spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, do you know where enthusiastic comes from?
No, tell me.
Comes from the Greek on Theos, which means the God within.
Mm,
So like the divine, like enthusiastic, like the divine.
yeah,
That's cool.
totally. And we've applied these meanings to these words for thousands of years, right? Like that's literally our cellular and our DNA memory informing us.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fun thing, that's definitely an old, like, that story's so boring. Like, come on, it's an old paradigm, right? You got to work hard. Money's hard to come by. You got to be grinding for the man for, 70 years or however long, because we can't retire anymore, and just all
Yeah.
the things, right?
Yeah.
Those, it's not that those days are gone. It's more like, but we now have a choice whether or not to participate because we're more aware of our options.
Mm-hmm.
But,
definitely. That is awesome.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, this has been amazing. My understanding of superpower and how to figure out what it is and how to use it just gets amplified every time. It's definitely taken a quantum leap on this conversation. So what's quantum leap? Yeah, I thought I'd throw that in there. Quantum leap. If anyone has it,
I did not even get into the physics or any of the science or anything, and that could be a whole other episode if we wanted.
Absolutely. No, the quantum stuff, like that's another thing that I was like, what is this stuff that people are talking about? And then I read about it a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Very cool. So Jennifer, thank you for joining me today. If people want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to keep an eye out for all the awesome stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. It's Jennifer Pereira is my full name, or you can hit me up on the web at www.themodernwoo.com.
Awesome. And I will definitely put those links wherever I'm posting this and sharing it for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Continue to enjoy your Palm Beach weather there. I'm looking to go skiing hopefully in a couple days and which is fun. I love it. So yeah, anyways. Very cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Ciao.
Bye.